I thought it would be prudent that we talked about disclosure, the big word disclosure. And I thought we need to approach it from a different angle. This is my angle. This is not a message from some miscellaneous race of beings. This is totally mine. Okay, this is mine. There are no aliens involved. Because really, the purpose of the disclosure, okay, the underlying purpose of a disclosure, the disclosure is a maneuver to motivate the controllers, the master controllers, the cabal, to release information and to grow up. Grow up, okay? Stop poisoning the air, stop poisoning the food, stop poisoning the water. Get people off of fossil fuels. Stop these calculated wars and biological threats, and stop using climate weapons. All of this stuff, there's a list. And people sometimes don't want to know that there's a list, and that you make your own list. The financial system, the economics, politics, whatever, make your own list. Things are corrupt. Okay, let's just make it at that. And fill in your own blanks. Whether it's vaccinations or whether it's back-engineered extraterrestrial technology. Fill in your own blanks. So the disclosure is a motivational factor. That's what it is. At the bottom, it has many layers, but at the highest layer, in my opinion, I have to say that, in my opinion, the highest layer is it's a motivational factor. It's a motivational force. Because if you don't grow up, we will expose everything and you will be held accountable for all the things you held back from society, for the things you did to society, for the corruption. Your name is going to go right on the table. So that's the disclosure. We will come out with a ship, with 10 ships, and we will land, and we will say, your world has been under the control of the cabal. And people will say, oh, you mean vaccinations aren't good for my children? You mean processed food lacks nutrition? You mean there's no such thing as climate change? It's just a cover story to cover all the climate weapons? So they say that's the disclosure. The disclosure is we're going to out everybody, everything at once. You're gone. You're finished. So the billionaires will lose their billions. They'll lose their castles. They'll lose their luxury and their mistresses and their money. And some of them might be indicted, and other people, there'll be crimes against humanity will be exposed. Who's behind the wars? Who's behind the terrorist campaigns? What are they really putting in vaccines? All of that would come out with a disclosure. That's the motivational factor. We don't want this stuff to come out because we will be ruined. So that's when you get negotiations. Negotiation says, let's pull back on the vaccination programs. Let's pull back on the financial manipulation. Let's make more electric cars. Let's make more solar panels. Let's release some of this back-engineered technology like, holographic software and the mobile phone, the smartphone. That's definitely a back engineered technology. Satellite, that's a back engineered technology. Let's get to the place where we say we have, electrogravitic aircraft, spacecraft. We have spacecraft built by humans in secret factories. Let's say, yeah, we have a few spacecraft, and we've been to Mars. Yeah, we've been to Mars. That's at the higher level. And that's the secret space program. Or you get into the revelation of Antarctica, that there are man giants under Antarctica, and then there are remnants of an ancient race under Antarctica. There are ruins under Antarctica that they've known about since World War II to some capacity. So that's part of the agreement. So we won't do a disclosure by force as long as you guys move forward. Start revealing stuff. Start talking about stuff. Start talking about the space program, the secret space program. Start talking about the climate weapons. There are climate weapons. Climate change is a cover story for the climate war. There's a climate war because nations have climate weapons. Specifically, I would say America, and I would say Russia. And whenever America and Russia are having a disagreement, right, America has a polar storm, has an unusually cold winter. And that we've had some surprise earthquakes in Haiti, and the earthquake in Japan. So my view of disclosure, it's always there, and it can happen at any time. My view is it can happen at any time. Previously, in previous years, in previous decades, there were restrictions on the disclosure. But they were based upon actions of the cabal. So there would be an agreement. If you do A, B, C, and D, we cannot do a disclosure. But after now decades of abuse and corruption and failing to uphold their part of the bargain, they haven't done A, B, C, or D. And they've just made excuses. So that says that to some degree that these people who can do a disclosure, they have some ability to do it. And there are ways around it. There are ways around it. But the idea of an advanced race, so this is the advanced race. They can do a disclosure. They have a ship. They can just show up anytime they want. But you have to understand an advanced culture, not space monster. Okay? You have to understand an advanced culture. How they think. And how they think is something like this. I'm suggesting, I'm speculating, since I don't have one with me. No. Okay, so the advanced culture says, look, if we do a disclosure, it's going to be disruptive. Right? It would disrupt the business, it would disrupt families, it would disrupt industries. Some companies may, they shut down production. There may be interruptions in, if people found out that food has stuff in it, they won't eat it. So these massive organizations would be stuck with product they can't sell, and people would be stuck with food they can't eat. And so where do they get an alternative? Who can supply that amount of food in a short period of time? You see the changeover? If they found out the truth about fossil fuels and gasoline, And everybody said, I want an electric car. Well, there's not enough electric cars. There's not enough to buy. There's not enough electric cars. So if people say, I refuse to drive gasoline because, as an example, what's the alternative? There's not enough of the alternative, right? So things of this nature, you could get the shortages. What you get is like, you get the shortages, right? Supply and demand. Because when people wake up, they want an alternative. They want something better. If everyone tomorrow said, I'm only eating organic food, there's not enough organic food. There's just not enough supply. Because most food is inorganic, or is processed, or it's canned. So, you see what I mean? So a disclosure would disrupt the economic flow of goods on one level. It would disrupt politics, because politicians may be outed. It would disrupt religion, because what do you mean there's no God? What do you mean that you guys wrote the Bible and then gave it to us? So it would cause a massive collapse. It usually is a collapse. So an intelligent race would foresee these things and more, and they would realize it's not a good idea. It can be done. It would be like a 2 or 3 or 4 year major turmoil. It can be done. That is a last straw, the final, right? The final straw. But then, and after that, it would be okay, right? Once you recover. So the question is, do you have to do that? Or can you say, we will do that unless you guys start to grow up? And there are ways to make companies grow up. One way is innovation, right? You give somebody innovation and you support them, and that technology disrupts other technology. So for example, the mobile phone is disrupting the landline. The smartphone is disrupting computers. You know, computers are all flat screen, they're tablets, where they used to be desktops. That's a disruption. You know, the self-driving cars. Self-driving cars could change the taxi service, right? The electric car would change the gasoline industry. You'd have to get out of gasoline and get into electricity, electric cars. So that's a motivational factor. So there's the disclosure, right? The disclosure is like the dumb thing to do, right? It's like the reset switch and everybody gets upset. That's the unintelligent thing to do, is a disclosure. It's a dumb thing to do. In previous years, they tried to work, the Stellans tried to work with these government agencies, intelligence agencies, security agencies, the military, says, we will help you leap forward, and then you share that with society. The problem was, after a while, this stuff was too good, and they sequestered that stuff, and they created what some people say that's the breakaway civilization, a second civilization that is more technologically advanced than the rest, right? They've built installations under the earth, they've built spacecraft, they have all kinds of they have, you know, the climate weapons. Nobody knows about this stuff, because that's a second civilization on top of the first civilization, on the backs of the first civilization. So that's what happened basically, is that information and technology and knowledge was shared, and it was corrupted, and it was sequestered. So some things got out, and most of it didn't get out. So that after decades of abuse, they say, well, that's enough. We have to change that. So now that we have this disclosure, the disclosure is we are going to disclose things, but we're going to give you a chance to grow up. Start releasing information, right? You look at the movie industry. The movie industry now, there's Netflix. Netflix is competing with the big film studios. That's a disruptive technology. So the big film studios before had no incentive to change. Now there's Netflix, there's video streaming, there's HBO. They are motivating these dinosaur businesses to change their model. And you're seeing this everywhere, okay? So I can't give examples for every industry, but you get the idea. A disruptive technology, a disruptive innovation, even new ideas that are motivating this shift. The shift, so now, with the release of this technology and the release of society and the betterment of society, we are moving closer to being able to communicate more directly with an advanced race. Because we'll drive electric cars, our airplanes will run on, electrogravitic propulsion. There'll be no more jet fuel. We may even have teleportation stations, at the higher level, right? And once we're doing that stuff, which the second civilization's already capable of doing, but once the majority of the world is comfortable with that, right? With holographic software, 3D software, AI, self-driving cars, all of that stuff, that becomes a modality, an interface for us to communicate with a more advanced race, because they're no longer speaking to primitive people who drive internal combustion engines and vaccinate their children, who are more aware of the Freemasons and the way money controls the world and the banks. We understand that. The value of the true history of religion. So once all that kind of gets released, then we can communicate better with this advanced race. We can accept the fact that there's an advanced race, because your ships don't use gas, that your ships don't use jet fuel, right? And you don't vaccinate your children. And we do genetic engineering. We do IVF, right? Fertilization, designer babies. Hey, you guys do it too. You guys know genetic engineering. Hey, you guys engineered us. It's not so difficult to understand that an advanced race can genetically engineer humans when the human can genetically engineer. It's not so difficult to understand an advanced race when the advanced race uses holographic software and humans are familiar with holographic software, right? So what I'm saying is the disclosure is a process. It's not the UFO disclosure. It's not the alien on a camera saying, "Greetings, we are from the planet of Bligalam, and we are here for peace." It's not that. The movies, the alien movies are just garbage. Alien movies are written by people who have no understanding what's going on or who are selling propaganda. They have no clue, because the extraterrestrial is an advanced being, not a monster and not an idiot. It's an advanced being, and they think in an advanced way, right? And you've never seen a movie about aliens who are actually intelligent, who aren't about to blow something up, because no one knows. They don't know. They don't know. Where was I? The disclosure. So it's a process. So it's not about aliens. It's about our civilization becoming more advanced. Technologically, spiritually, physically, psychically, right? It's about being aware. It's about knowing who has been controlling the world. It's been knowing the true history of the Earth, right? It's knowing about the secrets under Antarctica. We should know that. We should know that. That's our right, the human right to know. So, my disclosure, the way I have it pictured, it's a 30-year shift. So if every 10 years there's a major, technological shift, major spiritual shift, political shift, so that by the end of the third decade, after 30 years, we will have fundamentally upgraded into an advanced society. There'll be no more gasoline. There'll be no more airplanes won't use jet fuel. We won't be vaccinating people. Longevities might change. We'll have cured a number of diseases. We will be in contact with other races. There'll be portals. You may even be able to manufacture things at home instead of shopping online. Instead of shopping online, you can just download the specs and then 3D print it, right? Gee, I need a pair of scissors. Print up a pair of scissors. You may be even print up a bicycle and a car. You may be able to print up your own car for a price. For a price. And it runs on free energy. I mean, I don't know the extent of the technological shift, because technology that I'm aware of is very advanced. It's beyond imagination. So there's a lot of levels in between. So I don't know the full extent, but I would say 30 years is when you're going to see us attaining an advanced civilization status. Now, that could mean in the next 10 years we start conversing with stellans, in the media, at high levels of government. They could make themselves more plain in that 10 years. And then the next 10 years, we could have ships visiting, right? High-level communications, high-level visits, ships. And then we can reveal our ships. And then the next 10 years, it's a process. It's not what the movies have programmed us to think. It's this big one-day event. The biblical writings is one day, the prophecy, the judgment day. The prophecy, the day when the planet turns blue, and when you see a bird flying lower than this. That's not my approach. I don't believe in all that stuff. It was something that was used in ancient times, because ancient times people were stupid. And you say, ooh, you see the bird, you see the water turn red, you know God is watching. I believe you. We are more advanced, okay? We don't do that anymore. When you see a man on a white donkey, he is the Messiah. I believe you. We are not stupid anymore. And if we act like that, then we are stupid. Okay? My view. My view. You don't have to agree with my view, but it is my view. So there is a disclosure. We're working on it. Keep, moving towards it. But it's a process. I see it as a 30 years, we will be fundamentally changed. And the level of that change is hard to say. Because a single new technology could, take us there much faster.